and that is the center. The vowels produced when each of these parts is raised are accordingly called the front vowels, the back vowels, and the central vowels. The vowels produced when any part of the tongue is raised to the highest point, or nearly so, are called close vowels, and those produced with any part of the tongue at or very near or at the lowest point are called open vowels. Now, after having understood vowels and consonants and the place of articulation and manner of articulation and all the technicalities, we now come to the point of speaking correctly. For that, we need to first understand the process of communication. What exactly plays a vital role, or why is there the need to speak correctly? Why learn phonetics anyway? You can speak the way you want, so what if the mother tongue colors the accent of English? Why do we need to speak it correctly? Is it just because the world is turning into a global village and there is an increase in international travel and tourism, or because the students want to go abroad and study the correct language in that correct language? No, it's not just that. For that, you need to understand the basics of communication. When the speaker speaks, or rather, let's say, encodes a message. To encode a message, my dear students, is to create a message. Code meaning language. Therefore, to encode is to create a message. That message passes through the channel, and it is then decoded, meaning interpreted by the listener. The speaker can understand whether the listener has understood or interpreted his message or not only when the listener gives his or her feedback back to the speaker. Now, if there is a noise in the channel, now what exactly is noise? Noise is a technical term in the field of communications. It deals with every kind of noise. The noise could be external or internal. We'll deal with the kinds of noise later on. But because of the noise, there are chances that the message can get distorted, manipulated, or completely lost. And chances are that the listener will not understand what the speaker intended to say. And that is why there are chances that the speaker will not be able to get the expected feedback from the listener. For example, let's take the word present. I repeat the spelling of the word. It's present. Whether to pronounce it as present or present, we do not know. The word is very difficult to understand if it exists just like that, without a context. And therefore, to understand the word in a context is most important, because without understanding the meaning of this word, you cannot pronounce it correctly. It is very easy to say, I was present at the hall or in the hall to present my presentation, or I presented a present to my friend, but that is not so. I was present to present my presentation. I was present yesterday in the class. I presented my presentation in the class. I gave a present to my friend. Present tense, past tense, and future. It's just like that. Whether to call it present or present can be understood only when we see the word in a context. And therefore, to communicate clearly and correctly with your listener, it is most important to speak correctly. For example, why is it necessary to speak thank you? We can just say thank you. But then, while we are learning BRP, that is British Received Pronunciation, we would like to learn each sound correctly. In our Indian languages, the sound th doesn't exist. The sound that exists is th, and therefore this creates a trouble. Most of the students call it thank you, whereas the real pronunciation is thank you. the tongue goes up and touches the hard palate. Sorry, the soft palate. And it is most important to understand that. So, for communicating correctly with one another, learning phonetics is of great importance. Where to place an accent, what kind of intonation would be required, where to place the emphasis, where to pause, the pace of the speech, all of it matters, whether it's the speed, whether it's the pauses, all of it is taken into consideration while we are talking about spoken English. Most importantly, one acquires language. We are not born with this. We are not born with the knowledge of languages. We acquire them. How do we acquire them? We acquire them with the first step of listening. A child first listens to the language, then learns to speak, then read and then write. It's very different. We first learn to write A for an apple, but we forget that to master any language, we need to first listen to it many times, speak in that particular language, and then go on to reading and writing. Now, as we are moving on to spoken English, it is very important to also think of the diction, that is, the right choice of words. Why is it just always considered important that speaking correctly is most important? Because along with pronunciation, choosing right words also plays an important role in communication. Choosing right words and placing them at the right point in a sentence comes with two branches, that is syntax and semantics. In linguistics, like I told you before, are studied phonetics, phonology, syntax, semantics, discourse analysis, and pragmatics, out of which we saw a little of phonetics. Now we shall move on to syntax, that is code. Code meaning a set of rules, your grammar, that you're always scared of. Then semantics, meaning the words and their meaning. Why is it always boring to listen to the speech when the words are repeated over and over again? If I were to make a speech and if words were repeated in it, it would become monotonous. And the listeners, my audience, would lose interest in it. But is it necessary that for the sake of using new words, you must use them? No, it is not that. It is necessary to use the right words at the right place so that they can convey the intended meaning. Therefore, it is fine if you say that the book or the lecture is vapid instead of saying that the lecture is dull. But you can't say that the food is vapid. You can say that the food is insipid in taste. It is not as spicy, and therefore it is insipid in taste. Where to use formal language and where to use informal is again a big question while we are learning spoken English. The informal is magnolious and formal is magnificent, and they both mean the same. Resplendent, grand, lofty, something that draws your attention, attracts you. The palace is magnificent. The architecture is magnificent. The dress is magnolious. Her cupboard, her furnishings, the table furnishings, the dining room is magnolious. Now, when you say magnolious, you are using there an informal English word. And you must consider that while you are using informal words, you must also consider that you would be speaking to a person with whom you are informal. This is again understood under the rubric of non-verbal communication. Of course, choice of words, formal or informal, comes with the relationship, the nature of the relationship with the person. And that we study under proxemics. What is the proximity? How proximate? How close? Proximity meaning closeness. So proximate means close. If two people are emotionally close to one another, they can choose to speak in an informal language. but otherwise they will have to choose formal English words. That is important. And most of the times we miss out on these details, on these little portions to understand. These days, with the continuous usage of Facebook, there is a Facebook language coming up. And what we see, or what today's generation can produce, are just 5 words. Cool, awesome, pretty, fine, nice, and that's it. People are not aware of the words like reticent. Reticent meaning being silent about your own self. They are using many words to describe one word. The other day, when I was speaking to a person, and when he was using too many words, everybody could say that he is speaking too much, but nobody chose to speak that he is verbose. Choosing right words is not flaunting your English. That you have to consider. Choosing right words at right time in a sentence is being correct. And you can't be blamed for flaunting your English if you're being correct. So you can say that the person is being wordy. The speech is wordy. The speech is verbose. It's absolutely fine. Like I said, serene, tranquil are synonyms of calm. But we are not using these words. The serene or the tranquility along the shores or along the banks of the river. The tranquility along the serenity along the banks of the river, all these words are not used in the sentence. I felt calm at the river or by being close to the river. This is all what I see even in the essays, even in the paragraph writing of the students. When we come to talk about the choice of words, it is also important to understand the syntax, which is the code or the grammar, which deals with nouns and adjectives and prepositions. Because when each word is placed correctly in the sentence, only then your English or spoken English can be correct. That is most important. When we are talking about syntax, we need to focus on the tenses of the verb as well. Most of the time, people do not understand that child has its plural form as children and not children's. Person, people, not peoples. So the simple forms like singular, plural, tenses, again, like I said. The work will be done tomorrow. She will do the work tomorrow. They may do the work tomorrow. I am doing the work right now. These simple things like modal verbs and auxiliary verbs and transitive verbs and intransitive verbs, which might sound bulky to you, play a vital role for speaking English correctly. In order to understand spoken English, one lecture is not enough. But I'm quite sure that one lecture is inspiring enough to lead you on a way, or rather to inspire you, to enlighten or to kindle the light of encouragement in your minds, so that you can embark on a journey of fastidiousness, of meticulousness, to understand English correctly, to learn English correctly. My only advice to all the students is, listening to this program of course, is that please speak. If you stop speaking, thinking about your hesitation, thinking or fearing about what others will think about you, you will never learn. Listen to English. Speak as much as possible. Only if you will make mistakes, you will be able to learn. So please speak. And only then move on to reading and writing it correctly. You will not be able to master the reading and writing unless you know how, when, where, and why a particular word is spoken. Why and how a particular sentence is pronounced. All of it, whether it's intonation, voice modulation, accent, all of it matters the most when we are considering spoken English. Thank you.
संधान All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Vande Gujarat.